Good morning, guys. So this toolkit is about completing the square. That is the title. You should put the date on this page and write completing the square again at the top of your next blank page. So we're talking about something brand new, completing the square. It's another way to solve a quadratic. Okay. When a quadratic equation cannot be factored, you have two options. You can use the quadratic formula, which of course we've already learned, or you can use this method called completing the square. Okay. The best time to use completing the square is when a equals 1. Okay. I want to write that down. You don't have to copy this paragraph, but you do need to write this. A equals 1, completing the square is best. Okay. And then this part, of course, you can copy too. When a is greater than 1, we can use the quadratic formula. Tell me, guys, what am I talking about when I'm talking about a? What is this? This is standard form. Okay, standard form is what a quadratic always looks like. When we're given it, sometimes we have to put it in standard form by simplifying. But a, this value right here, is what I'm talking about. If a is greater than 1, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. If a is equal to 1, then I'm going to complete the square. And again, factoring is certainly an option also, but we're talking about using these two methods when you cannot factor it. Okay. All right, so we've learned quadratic formula. We've learned completing the square. We've learned factoring. In Math 1 and a little bit in this class, we've graphed parabolas. Okay, and there's one more method that I'm going to show you just a brief example about called square root method. Square root method. Okay, and it's good, but it's not often very helpful. Anyway, it's good for a specific example. So those 5 ways we know how to solve a quadratic. The solutions for a quadratic. What are the solutions for a quadratic? We say solutions, we say roots, we say zeros, we say x-intercepts. Remember, all those mean the same thing, okay? All those mean the same thing. And I know that's frustrating, but you got to know that those words are synonyms. They mean the same thing. If I ever ask you for the roots, I'm asking you for these other things. They're the same thing. All right. I know that's frustrating. If you need to write any of that down, go ahead and pause the video. In this slide, I know there's a lot to write, but I do need you to write all these steps down. Okay, believe me, you're going to be thankful that you did. Okay. Please pause the video and write those on the side of your paper and leave room to do this example on the other side. As I start this example, I hope you already have those steps written down because you paused the video like I told you to. Now, the first step says, since the problem cannot be factored and a equals 1, we will complete the square. So we know that a is 1. We decided to complete the square because it's not factorable. There's no factors of -10 that add to be 8. I want to put it in this form. Notice that c is not on the right side. Okay, this is standard form. That's normally how we want it. But c needs to be on the other side to complete the square. And it also says add blanks like I did. So that's what this means. If I move 10 to the other side, I'm going to add a blank right there. If I move 10 to the other side, it's going to become a positive 10. Okay? And I'm going to add a blank right there. Okay, that's my first step, really, to first step, even though it's step 2. To add blanks and put c on the other side. Okay. In those blanks, I'm going to put this simplified. Okay. So B is 8 in my problem. B is 8. I'm going to divide 8 by 2 and square it. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, squared is 16. That goes in my blank. Okay. Fill in the blanks with that simplified. Okay. I'm going to kind of draw a line here so we don't get that confused. Once we've done that, we're simplifying this side. Okay. This makes the left side factorable into a perfect square trinomial, meaning that the factors of 16 add to be 8 or 4. They're supposed to be the same, 4 or 4. So we're going to factor that, and it's supposed to be the same number. If you factor that wrong into two different numbers, then you didn't do this step right. All right, and we'll simplify this side. All right, step 4. We factored and we simplified the right side. Take the square root and solve for x. Before we do that, let's write this. And normally I would do this in the same step, but this first time I didn't. So you can skip this step because this is always going to be a perfect square trinomial, which means we can always write it like this, okay? So once we write it like this, to cancel out that squared, we're going to take the square root. We're going to take the square root of both sides and just get what's on the inside. So x plus 4. And when we take the square root in an equation, we have to use the plus or minus symbol. Okay? So take the square root and use the plus or minus symbol. We're going to move 4 to the other side and make it negative. Now, this is my final answer. But as the last step says, if the directions ask for solutions, leave it as a radical, okay? Exact solutions, meaning I don't want rounded answers. I just want to leave it like that. If the directions ask for rounded solutions, simplify the radical in the calculator and round. So let's do that also. If this is the exact solutions, okay, if it asks for exact, I'll write that in a different color. If it asks for exact solutions, this is what it is asking for, okay? If it asks for rounded solutions, we're going to put them in the calculator and use that plus or minus symbol. So I have negative 4 plus the square root of 26. That's 1.1, we'll say. 1.1, okay? And negative 4 minus the square root of 26 is negative 9.1. Okay, negative 9.1. So those are the rounded solutions. These are the exact solutions, and that is fine. Both of them are right. This is how IXL will ask for it. This is normally what you would see on an exam or on my test. But again, they're both right. Both the same thing. Let's do another example. Pause the video if you still need to write any of that down. So, in this problem, we're still completing the square. I don't have the steps on the side anymore. We kind of got to know them. The first thing that I want to do is move C to the other side and add my blanks. C was negative, so when I move it to the other side, it's going to become positive. What do I put in that blank? I put B divided by 2 squared, okay? So 4 divided by 2 is 2, squared is 4. So I'm going to put a 4 in those blanks. The factors of 4 that add to be 4 are 2 and 2. They're supposed to be the same. Remember, they're supposed to be the same. Okay, this I'm going to write with a squared. And again, if you wanted to skip this step, you can. But I factored it. And now I'm going to be able to take the square root I'm going really fast, guys, I know, but we just did an example, and I want you to see how short this way can be if you know what you're doing, okay? If I take the square root, remember I have to use a plus or minus symbol. Now I'm going to move 2 to the other side, so it's going to become a negative. Again, that is my final answer in exact solutions. If I wanted the rounded solutions, they are these, okay? I paused the video to put that stuff in the calculator, but again, these are the rounded solutions, and this is the exact solution. Both are correct. If I ask for rounded, that's what I expect you to do. All right, let's do one more, and then you're going to try one. So notice in the last one, I asked for the solutions, solve. In this one, I'm asking for the x-intercepts. Is that the same thing? Absolutely, same thing. This one is also equal to f of x, okay? But that's not a big deal. We're just still finding the solutions. We can set that equal to 0, and now move that 3 to the other side and add my blanks. Add a blank, add a blank, okay? Again, this changes signs when it moves across the equal sign. Don't forget to do that, or you're going to mess up the whole problem. What goes in those blanks? B divided by 2 squared, okay? So b divided by 2 is 1, because b is 2. And then squared is 1. So 1, 1. Again, when I factor this, you can skip straight to this step if you want. Now we're taking the square root of both sides. When I take the square root, I have to use plus or minus in my equation. Oh no, we got a negative. What will we do? Well, you guys understand imaginary numbers now. I know you do, okay? You've practiced it for a few weeks, okay? Maybe a week. But you got it, okay? So when I have a negative underneath the radical, don't freak out. Just make it an I, okay? I'm going to move 1 to the other side, and then I'll simplify that I, so we're not doing two things at the same time. All right, so if there's an I in my equation, I do not want decimals, okay? I'm going to leave it as an I and leave it with exact solutions, okay? Wonderful, beautiful. You guys can handle a negative. Not a big deal. All right, you can handle this next example also. Let's do this one. You try it. Try to go back and look at your steps because I know you wrote them down and they're going to help you. And do this example on your own paper now. Okay, I'm giving you a hint. And then I'm going to ask you to pause again. So this is my first step. Make sure you made that 24 negative. And then, so when I moved it to the other side, it became negative. And then when I square, so negative 6 divided by 2 is 3, negative 3. When I square negative 3, though, it becomes a positive 9. That number goes in those blanks. You can finish this problem. Pause the video again. Alrighty, so we have the final answer written down there. Some mistakes that I think are common is not to make this a negative, so be careful. When I factor this, the factors of 9 that add to be negative 6 would be negative 3 and negative 3. So that needs to be a negative, and then at the end when I move it to the other side, it becomes a positive. So if this is wrong, that's probably the reason. The rest of this, hopefully you got with no problem. Good job, guys. I know you can do this IXL and the practice problems. Woohoo! Go completing the square.